And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another episode in my Aussie fan series. And today, ladies and gentlemen, coming from Melbourne, Australia, I have Mr. Mark O'Sullivan. Mark, how are you doing today, sir?
Good, thanks, Donnie. And how are you?
I am not doing too bad. It is great to connect with you, sir. I'm very fascinated for today's chat, but I'm when I start when I first do my interviews, I like kind of finding out just a little bit of information outside of the game of footy. I mean, I know everybody's here to talk a little bit of footy, but I like finding out a little bit outside of footy. So if you just a real quick bio of who Mark is.
I'm originally from Sydney, hence the Giants. But I basically grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney, played a place called Greystanes, and then I moved to the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, which people think of the Three Sisters and other things, but I'm the lower end, New Penrith. I basically lived in Wagga for a couple of years. Wagga was an interesting town, but I was I am an English teacher in high school. And I in Sydney, so I was for a long time I was there, and then for family reasons due to my wife, she's Melburnian, so she wanted to live closer to her mother. Her mother had various sort of health issues, so we moved to Melbourne at the end of 2019, just before the global pandemic. And I'm an English teacher again, so in Melbourne. So that's what's pretty much who I am. Yeah.
Awesome. So being a Sydney person, sometimes it's interesting because I know a lot of people say Sydney is rugby nation. So I mean, what's your favorite thing about Aussie rules football?
Well, the thing about Aussie rules football, so when I was a little kid, my parents weren't really into any sport much on television, and so I could choose. And so I was watching rugby league, and I'd be watching VFL. And I remember as an 8-year-old kid watching it on television. The coverage from Channel 7 was amazing. From the MCG, massive crowds. Like, you watch the rugby league and it'd be like 10,000 at some park in Ashfield or something, or not Ashfield, Leakham. Very sort of half professional coverage. It was bad. And then you get this Channel 7 coverage from Melbourne, just magnificent crowds. And that's the speed of it. And that all looked a bit random. It didn't look like very organized. You couldn't really predict what was going to happen, and that's what I really liked about it. Was just this random mess of everything, people running around and lots of cheering, and it just seemed to me a much more exciting sport to a 8-year-old watching it on commercial television, Channel 7 in those days. But it was just, and that's why it grabbed me, and it never really, and I've pretty much kept that same sort of attitude towards it, and same sort of that I have all these years later. But yeah, that's what sort of drew me to it. Not that I could actually go and watch it in Sydney. It was always television. But that's why it sort of grabbed me.
Awesome. So would you say that game when you were 8 years old would be your earliest footballing memory?
Yeah, pretty much. It was. So my early memories were of Kevin Bartlett, Bruce Dool, and those sorts of guys. And then I was a Carlton supporter very briefly because they were blue and I was 8. So, they were also a pretty good team in those days. But yeah, that was pretty much, it was my very much my early memories.
Awesome. That is great. Now you kind of previewed a little bit earlier, but I always like asking just to be sure in case somebody missed it. Who's your club? And then kind of why are you a supporter of that club?
Okay, so I'm a foundation member of the GWS Giants, and the reason I'm a supporter of the club is that because I was a young VFL supporter in Sydney in the 80s, and I really liked the game. Couldn't really watch it, and I couldn't really go to games even when the Swans moved up, because it was really hard for a kid without kind of friends to go with, and without a family that really wanted to take me to actually go to the SCG for games. So I basically, for all that time, I preferred the game, but it was always a remote thing. And then over time, I kind of faded, and then I watched a bit of bits and pieces, and I watched the 96 was involved with like watching that. But then I got married, and I married my first wife was someone who didn't like the game very much. So I kind of drifted away. But then So always the Swans. I remember 2005 and 6 vividly and all that stuff. I was in a pub watching 2005, and that's another story. But essentially, when the AFL said we want to build a club in Western Sydney, which was where I came from, where I grew up, all that, I thought, well, I have to be on board because I know they'll need supporters. I know they'll need people around. And it was also, I was able to get more games. And just that's why I switched, because I was the Swans, of course, for a long time. And then, I switched to the Giants, but essentially because that was my area. And I figured as though I could probably help in some way.
That's fantastic. I mean, I love that you wanted the team from your area. So that's absolutely fantastic. And off camera, you said that your wife is a Swan supporter. Is there any other differentiation when it comes to footy teams in the family, or is it kind of you're the Giants? Have you tried to convert any of your family members into being Giants people?
Well, I mean, there's no converting my wife. She when she first moved to Australia. She lived in South Melbourne, which is the reason, part of the reason. But she said she can't do Orange. But I think she also appreciates the Swans, the culture as a team, and the supporters. And and then and I'll say this. I mean, a lot of Giants supporters don't agree with me, but I like the Swans. I like the Swans culture. I like the club. I like a lot about what's going on there. So I completely get that. In terms of my family, my daughter, she goes to games with me. She's a Giant supporter, but she only goes when I'm around. So she doesn't take herself to them. But she does when we do go. She has said to me she really, really likes it. She really likes the game. She really gets involved when we're there. So I definitely converted her. And actually, she doesn't. Her boyfriend's a rugby league guy, and but she won't go to rugby league. She says no. She says AFL's better. And so that's why that's what happens there. But so her son hates all sport. It doesn't like. There's a reason. There's reasons for that. But yeah. So, but also I'm kind of known as the Giants guy in around where I live and work, because I've got a car with a number plate with Giant number plates. Not many of those in Victoria. And the school I'm at, I'm the Giants guy because, again, it's everyone in Melbourne's mad about football. So, but as we're converting, not many converted, but due to me. But I'm kind of known as the person who is there in the orange.
That's not a bad thing. You're proud of it. That's great. Again, unfortunately, GWS is a younger club. Unfortunately, they don't have the history, but it doesn't mean it not eventually come. And the fact that you're a foundation member is spectacular. I mean, you have something not a lot of people can boast nowadays. So, can you remember the first Giants item that you were given or you bought?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it was. So I think there's been these various scarves and caps who've been given over the years. But I actually, the most memorable one I think was me buying the Guernsey for the first time, and just putting it on. It did have this kind of aura about it, which I was surprised about. I'm a very, very pragmatic person. I'm not a big aura person, but there was an aura about putting this Guernsey on, and it felt like it was just this whole thing. I think it was probably because it's a really good design, the first ones. It was just that kind of feeling of this is us, this is our crew, and I just that was my first memory of like really drew me to the whole experience.
Awesome, that's amazing. And being an American, it's not always easy to be a fan of Aussie rules because of the time difference and everything like that. But I consider myself a diehard. Now, some people that's a negative context because you might be seen as going too far in. So I'm always fascinated to find out how people would describe their passion or their as I call it fandom of their club. So if you could just really quickly, can you describe your fandom or your passion for the GWS Giants?
Well, it's interesting. In the early days, I mean, it was a case of because I have the real world passion. So going to games was actually really interesting because there weren't many of us, and especially those early days, and you kind of become this crew together. you sort of bunker down, and because you have lots of people opposing you, so you become you turn into this sort of bunker attitude, and you become very defensive. And I was very, very defensive of my fellow Giant supporters. And so at the games it was great. We were all fine, and then we go to other places and experience other fans and go, oh, there's something not quite right about you. And when you go to Victoria, it's a very different thing than New South Wales. New South Wales is a bubble, like, in terms of Giant supporters, but online. So I'd go on Twitter, and I did really go deep into all those Twitter accounts and footy kind of rabbit holes and stuff, and forums. I went into that, and I became very defensive of my mates who weren't online, and I became very, very defensive, and kind of would battle people about all the perceptions and tell them, you're wrong about this and wrong about that. I did that for a while, and I also and then I realised that was pointless, because it's not going to change minds that way. And also I realised that's not really me either. I was saying things, it's like, no, that's not me. So I drew back from it a bit, and became less of an online tragic, if you like. And I realised I just became more chill online, because I realised that my mates down at the game and the crew of people who were supporting the game, the players, they're still into it, they're still fine, and they're not worried about the people outside. That's their problem. If they want to bag us for whatever reason, that's their problem, not ours. So, but I'm a diehard in the sense that I'm a member of the cheer squad, and I've been helping organise the cheer squad in Melbourne. Actually, there was a lot of stories about that this last year about the Melbourne cheer squad. So, but I was a member of the Sydney cheer squad, and not because I'm a massive rah cheers shout person. I like kind of being involved in that play, seeing other people do it, and wave a flag, and that sort of thing, and be an organizer, because that's what I do in my real life, my teaching life. I'm an organizer person, so that's kind of where I'm at. So cheer squad, but not like super fan. That's that term, super fan, which I think it's used as an insult too much, but I don't think I'm probably a super fan. I'm more a case of, I like representing the club outside as a kind of fun thing to see the reaction, but also help with the cheer squad. That's probably how I describe myself.
And I've said to many, everybody fans differently. Everybody handles how they're going to do it. Not everybody's going to go to the club, go to the games of the club and spray the opposite team, be down and dirty all the time. Some of them just want to go to the footy. They want to enjoy the footy. They want to cheer on their team, and that's it. And so everybody fans differently. So I think that's kind of the fun part for me is that you hear different perspectives on how people fan for their team. So again, the Giants are a young team. Can you remember the first Giants game that you attended?
Yeah, I did, and it was at the Olympic Stadium. It was their very first game. It was the Sydney Olympic Stadium, and it was against the Swans. It was the big. It was a big day, because I remember sitting, because I had two seats in the way. I had the seat with the cheer squad, which weren't behind the goals for some weird reason. It was a weird setup. It was just that first game was a weird setup. But I was actually sitting, even though I wasn't a member of the cheer squad at that stage, but I was sitting with them, I think it was, or near them. Can't remember. It's actually that long ago. But I remember my first seat, though, because that's where my kids and my second wife was sitting. I got a seat in next to the commentary position, because I was somehow involved. How I got that, I don't know. But I remember seeing Brian Taylor. I had no idea who he was, because we were actually where we were. We were kind of there. We were, I think, being filmed as kind of a these are Giants people. And so I've never seen Brian Taylor before, and I didn't know who he was. But I remember seeing him going, "Who is that?" And pretty much I've had the same view ever since. But I remember that the game, because where I stood, we saw the first banner. It was very exciting. And then for the second half, I went down and sat with my. Actually, no, it was after the first quarter. I didn't want to sit with the fancy people anymore. I just wanted to go back down to where the fans were. But but it was very, very different, and because we were smashed that night. But Stephen Cornelio really stood out that night. But that very first game back in the day, and we proved to everyone very quickly that the Olympic Stadium is a terrible ground for Australian rules football. and should never happen again. And I'm very pleased we don't play there anymore. But yeah, that was the first one, the very first game.
Awesome. That's great. And again, you have that different memory and that different thing compared to most fans. You got to see their first ever game. That's fantastic. Now, unfortunately, because of the lack of history, I'm going to change this question just a little bit from what I've normally asked. Who's your favorite player that's ever donned the GWS jersey?
Yeah, it's interesting. We haven't got players from 50 years ago. Um, Oh, that's always a very hard question because it's it's a matter of who's your so they always say who's your favourite sister or your child or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would probably say in all intents and purposes, I'd probably have to say Callum Ward. I think he he represents the heart and soul of the club and has done so for a very long time. And he's got, and talk about auras, he's got an aura about him whenever you see him, just when you, because I've gone to various things over the years, and he's got this aura. He's just a great man. And I think he's been, I think he's my favorite guy. I still like Sam Taylor. He's really good as one of the young blokes. So there's a number of players I really like their play over the years, but no, Callum to me is the number one.
Fantastic. So, I like finding this one out because again, you've had some success with GWS. They've had a couple of finals berths. So can you tell me what's your most memorable moment as a GWS supporter?
There's a couple. I have to say, I think probably, it was probably the moment I was actually, I had a massive issue with my back at one stage and I couldn't walk very far. So I actually wasn't there for this one, which really cut me up. But it was the preliminary final in 2019 when we held out Collingwood, and Sam Taylor he punched the ball away, and that meant that we got into the grand final. That was a memorable moment. Probably that was one of them. But I've got pictures. So
Sure.
So there's this one. Now, this one there. So there's a story of this picture. It's probably fairly memorable in the sense that this was the 2017 prelim. And I remember making the decision the night before, the spontaneous decision to fly down on the morning of the game. And then suddenly there I was carrying, because I've been carrying the banner out for a while with the cheer squad. And there I was at the front of this thing in the middle of the MCG with all those crazy Richmond supporters. And that was pretty memorable, that whole experience, carrying the banner out and then having the AFL photos guys take a photo. And I thought that was a pretty special moment, just a personal moment. I don't appear many times on photos, and I'm very happy about that. But this one was a good one. I thought it was, and that's why I bought it and put it on the wall. But that was probably, as a fan, that was memorable. But yeah, just as a supporter of a club, then I'd say 2019 prelim was pretty big.
Yeah, it's hard to argue getting your club, being a young club and getting all the way to the grand final in 19 was an accomplishment. We won't go what happened the next game. We won't go there. we won't go there. Let's just safe to say I was highly disappointed. I thought they were going to give Richmond a heck of a game, and it just, for some weird reason, it just did not work your way, unfortunately.
No, I didn't actually. I was the opposite. I knew that we were cooked the week before. In fact, I was amazed we got through that one.
Yeah, it'll be quite interesting. So so we'll kind of go to the present day nowadays. Kind of what were your thoughts on GWS's season this last year? It was kind of filled with ups and downs, but you have to say making the finals again was quite an accomplishment for a team that was riddled with injuries for many parts of the season.
It was bizarre. It was a bizarre season. The reason it was bizarre was because when I watched the Freo game the second week, I thought, is this 29? This is 2020 again. This is going to be, it's garbage. That Freo game, I haven't seen them play that bad for years. And I thought that's, and then it was just up and down all whole season. It was very, and then I was getting hopeful. The Richmond game, the one where Dusty Martin apparently scored a goal, which none of us thought he did, because he went over the line and then he kicked it. Yeah, that's what it looked like. Anyway, I'm joking about that. I don't know. This doesn't. I'm not still living with that one. All I remember though was we were with these really, really just dumb. Like there was some really, really abusive, dumb Richmond supporters sitting near us, the cheer squad. And I don't mind banter. It's just this was just nasty. It was a nasty evening. And you know, Richmond players fans are they're not our people. I know they're not your people, but that we still have to deal with them. That was it was that. But then I think there were certain games where we just showed this cohesion. But the thing was that because the problem is that we didn't have the forward line for many weeks, like a really formed forward line that could be competitive, and missing talls and that kind of thing. I mean, the Geelong game at the end was a write-off because we didn't have any talls. And Jesse Hogan getting written off us. It just, yeah. So I think we actually punched above our weight, really, in the end. And we got through with some very fluky plays and freaky plays. And it was a scrambling year and I think a good coaching year. I think it was actually Leon's one of his best coaching years because he had to try to make do with what he had. And I think that was probably the biggest for me. Honestly, I think it was a character year for me, character building year, where we didn't have that massive talent that people always have and say, oh, you're all talented. But I think we actually had character through, and people saw how good Sam Taylor is. And also just, and it was good. I really enjoyed it. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to talk about my second photo. I've got a second photo here. It was a very strange season. Because this is my second photo here. Now, there's a reason. Now, again, I'm on the corner of this one. There's a reason I've got this one, though, because what happened about this season was that there was that moment when no one from Sydney could come down to Melbourne, except, of course, the team. And so we don't have many supporters in Victoria. There's a reason for that, because we don't have a Melbourne connection. So I reached out to the club. Like they flew them out on a Wednesday, I think it was, Tuesday. I reached out to the club and I said, how can I help in trying to get a presence behind the goals? And so they sent me some floggers, which I don't know if they're in this photo. No, there's some floggers out the front, So, and also some flags. They posted them down, and they ensured that I got a car parking pass for under the MCG. And so I could take the floggers there, but also we had a bunch of people who lived in Melbourne who made some more flags. They got some people in to help out. We got a presence, and this is what it looked like. Now, this is at the Melbourne game, where we played Melbourne and beat them. And I thought it looked pretty good. It was a bunch of us together. So to me, it was really good. To me, that was probably the most memorable part of the season in some ways, was the fact that we actually got a little Melbourne cheer squad together, and we did things a bit different to the Sydney guys. And there's reasons. There's actually differences in cheer squads and the way they approach things in the two cities. But so it was good to be a part of it. It was insane. We almost got a banner up. We were that organised. We almost got a banner going for the Sydney versus Giants derby, because I wanted one. I wanted a banner, and we almost got one up, and then they had to flow them off to Brisbane. But and we had a banner organised, and Sydney didn't, even though Sydney's got a bigger presence down here. But we were going to Collingwood were going to help us. It was crazy, right? Collingwood. People say that stuff about Collingwood. They were going to help. Their cheer squad was going to help us make a banner. Because of the connections that have been built and over the years. So it was, but I was in the middle of that, and that was, it was, looking back, it was pretty crazy stuff, but it was fun. But honestly, so when we went to the season, I know I'm going on off track here, but
that's fine.
The whole thing with the season was that, so we'd have this thing where we beat Melbourne, right? We're all going, yes. And then next week we're up in Ballarat and we got blown away by the wind and by the Suns. It's okay. Like, that's what I mean. So those last few weeks, we were like, we were all surprised with just but pleasantly surprised. And then beating the Swans in that final again. It's like, well, I was shocked because the Swans would have won it probably, but it was a strange season, but it was character filled. That's what I liked about it.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I remember in my podcast, we after week 3, when you were 1-3, I had heard the rumblings of is this Leon Cameron's last season? Is there anything else that he can do? And then to
Yep.
see the complete and about face in the because of the injuries, that he had to go with more no-name players, some lower
Yep.
list players, that I agree with you. It really showed how good a coach Leon Cameron is, because he got a team that halfway through the season, most people had kind of written off GWS as they're not going to make the finals. They're inconsistent. They're injuries to their superstars. There was no way. So I will completely agree with you on that. If it weren't for Melbourne and Sydney being such surprises, I think GWS has a great argument that Leon Cameron could have been coach of the year this year. So I am completely with you on that. And when it comes to that game in the finals, that was an incredible game. I think Sydney butchered their kicking in front of goal in the fourth quarter. That really is
Yep.
it. If they kick straight, if one of those 7 kick straight, they win that game.
Yep.
But it just shows you how physical finals footy is. And there was a lot of youth on Sydney's side, where I believe GWS had a little bit more hard edge to it. They had played finals more, so I think it really did give them an advantage in that game down in Launceston.
I think Giants. Well, yeah, and I think I think the Giants. That was what, it was the experience and hard headedness, and it was, I think that's probably what got them through. Launceston, so it was an interesting ground in itself. But the wind is a big thing there too. But yeah, it was. But then so a lot of us, there are Giant supporters who kind of absolutely enjoy betting the Swans. And I'm not one of them, to be honest. I'm still not one. I never will be. But but that was a really solid game. I think it was. Well, I thought the Swans had all the game. I think it was halfway through. I said, you're going to win this. And anyway.
It was a slog, I'll tell you that. But it was a fun game of footy. Even when Sydney lost, I was happy with the season. GWS played the better game in the first half. There's no doubt about it. So we've gotten to the off season. We've gone through the free agency period. We've gone through the trade period, and GWS has kind of stayed still. So have you been keeping an eye on the off season? Kind of what are your thoughts going into the draft period?
Yeah, a little bit. I used to pay a lot more attention when I was trying to learn the game, the depths of the game more, because I wasn't massive depths of the game trade period sort of person when I was a Swan supporter. I was just like watching it in television. But with the Giants, I've become more interested in that stuff, and then fantasy footy too. But I've dropped off fantasy footy. I've gone right off that in a big way. I just the talk on the forums don't not just lost interest. But with trade, I mean, it was a consolidation. I mean, I think getting Jared Brand is a good thing. I'm a massive fan of the Swans model of getting no names or getting sort of scraps from other clubs and just making them into something good, and so you're not having to spend a lot of money on people. And I'm a big Swans have been able to do that for a long time, and I've always admired that. I've admired the way the Swans have gone about things for so long, and I mean that's the thing. I think we need to do more of it, the Giants. So. But because we can't buy the big name players, don't want to come to us because it's moving from Melbourne. Oh no, how terrible. Having living in Melbourne now, I do actually sort of understand that. But Jared Brand is a good buy because I think we just need someone up on the forward line who can play a role, can half contest and lots of things. I mean, so and look, I'm pleased we stared. We basically said, Bobby, you can't go. I think that was useful. That was good. And so because we need him because Toby Greene's stupid enough to do that thing to the umpire. People always have a go. See, people always have a go at me about Toby Greene. I said, I know. He does stupid things. He shouldn't do stupid things. I wish he wouldn't. He's a good player and he should stop doing stupid things. he just, and it's just look, I'm not going to be. I don't justify Toby Greene's stupid actions, because what's the point? I'm not one of these free Toby people. Stop doing stupid things anyway. But
I'm 100% with you. I don't know. Do you keep track at all of any sports here in the States, like NBA, NHL, any of that?
not massively, no.
Okay. There's a professional hockey player named Brad Marchand who plays for the Boston Bruins, who I've said on many occasion, Toby Greene does a lot of the same things. Super
Right.
talented, amazing player, but
Mm.
just does way too many things that you're just like, what are you doing? You're too good a player to do such stupid things. Just
Yeah.
play the game, be the player that you are. Stop doing stuff you don't need to do. So it's my favorite comparison, because Toby does the same thing. Super talented, an amazing player. If he just played the game, if he'd stop being, pardon me, fans that are listening, stop being a dickhead and just
Yeah.
play. I
Oh,
think
look,
he could be one of the best players in the entire competition, but he
absolutely.
spends so much time trying to be the quote unquote competitor, which I
Mm.
disagree. I don't think you need to be a competitor that way personally. So he's too good a player to be able to do some of the things that he does do, and that is very frustrating for somebody that thinks there's wasted talent sometimes because of that.
Yeah, well, the thing for me is also the other thing is that when he started playing for the side, and when he was and before he started playing for the side, he had various issues off field as well. And there was that moment when the club gave him a suspension for what he was doing off field, and he's cleaned off from what I can see, he's cleaned up his life off field, on field, off field. Like he in Sydney's best thing for him, because he moved there. He's got good support. He's got all that going. He's going to university with Phil Davis and all that sort of stuff off field, but on, that's what's so frustrating, because you've really cleaned up your act, and then on field you just do this. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's 5 weeks out, because it said, well, hopefully learns from that. We always say that every year. But as for the rest of them, I think that, to say, the brand of things is good. I think hanging on to Bobby, Jeremy Finlayson needs a different environment. That clearly, I mean, that good luck to him. Don't worry about that. Um, and I think it's a matter of building on what we've had this year. So we'll have Cogs for having thinking through a preseason. I remember all these people again online going on, oh, Cornelio should go. No, Cornelio is a great player. He just has a bad run of bouts, bad run. He is a great player, and he'll get back to being great again. So we'll have him there. Look, and even you can even have him in the Toby Greene role in the forward line. It's not. He's done it before. He can do it again. I just think you can. He is a great player and a great man. I'm a big fan of Cornelio, and I think as a captain, he probably does need to improve. Maybe. I mean, that stuff. I saw a bit of the Amazon Prime thing. Wasn't he was trying too hard to be something. Just be yourself, mate. You're a good leader. I think you've got a potential, but maybe we'll see what happens with that. But I think, I think the trade season is good, because I think sometimes clubs get too carried away with winning the trade period, and they don't, how they go during the season. So I'm quietly happy, but again, I like being under the radar. I always used to make this joke about the Swans, is that they're always playing under the radar, because Victorian media, like AFL media, is Victorian based, and they just sort of they'd say these things like, oh, if this player was playing for a Victorian club, he'd be better known. So, well, well, he's a good player, he's flying under the radar, and that's the thing with Sydney. He's always flying under the radar. Well, I want the Giants to fly under the radar too.
It'll be interesting. And the other thing too, you got to look to is that you made that trade with Collingwood, so you have the number 2 overall pick too. So you've got a
Yes.
very very high caliber talent coming in as well.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think Cornelio, he either goes to halfback line or the half forward line. I think take him out of the midfield, take a little bit of the pressure off him a little bit. I think it'd be great. So we've kind of prefaced it a little bit, and I'm one of those. I hate seeing expectations for a season, because I think it puts a little in adverse pressure. I'm one of those. I'm hope that something happens, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's an expectation. So are you one of those that has expectations of how the Giants are going to do next season? Or are you kind of, we'll see how it goes? There's a lot of things up in the air.
We see how it goes is my take. I say that every year. I think, look, if we base it on this year, we should make finals. It'd be nice to be in a final. Maybe 5 to 8. I don't know about 1 to 4. But yeah, I think I got to the stage where I think I'm possibly, because I don't live in Sydney, and I'm slightly more removed from it all. I just go. I like sort of being involved and getting, and seeing what happens. I'm not massively like, I'm not like, oh, we have to get the top 4. I'm not really that, like, it's just, we'll see what happens. I like going to games. I like enjoying them. It's and helping out, cheering. It's just not, yeah. That's pretty much my sums me up.
Not a problem. It's going to be fascinating next year seeing, because I went through it a couple of days ago. I could see between 10 to 12 teams all fighting for the finals next year. That's how many really good teams are going to be. You've got a couple that just missed. Frio just missed. Richmond just missed. I think both of those two, keep an eye on them. Essendon could be just as good next season. West Coast, how does West Coast bounce back next year? So, I mean, I can think of, like I said, 11, right? The 8, I think all 8 teams that made the finals this year, I think, have a good shot of making finals next year. Yeah. And then you throw in Frio, West Coast, Richmond, Carlton, even as well. There's 12 there. It's insane. I think next year is going to be absolutely insane trying to make the finals. So I like this.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I like Frio. I like Frio. I think Frio will. I think if we're talking about pressure, I think the Swans should go better next year because of from the experience, and yeah, I definitely think they'd be better. I would be looking, if I was a Port supporter or a Brisbane supporter. No, Brisbane I feel very sorry for, because their big people went earlier, and I knew that they wouldn't make it because of the thing. But I think if you're a Geelong, sort of Geelong, Brisbane or Port supporter, they may have something to worry about. Maybe. I mean, but who knows? I mean, again, you never know. But I think so. Because the other thing is, especially, I mean, there's a lot of expectation around Port, especially. I went off sorry for Port, like, the obsession with football in Adelaide. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting season, and it's going to be very hard to predict. I think that it's harder to predict this year. So I won my work football tipping this year.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be, yeah.
It's going to be fun. So, all right, I like asking a lot of fun questions towards the end, because I think they kind of diversify, and I kind of get into kind of hear how you kind of think. So I'm gonna have a little bit of fun over here in the States. A lot of people love being the general manager, as they say. They like to make the moves. They want to get the best team they possibly can. So I like having a little fun with this. So right now I'm going to install you as the list manager at GWS as we speak right now.
Oh,
I'm going to open up. The 17 other clubs are completely open. Every player is available to bring in. Who's the first person you bring into the Giants, and why?
First person I bring in. Look, the stirrer in me says Buddy Franklin. But
It'd be interesting to see him on the western side. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it to you, because Buddy in Sydney is such a good match. I was one of the few Giant supporters when that happened. I was like, I'm actually happy he's going to Sydney. I think he would have been a bad mix for Western Sydney. It would have been a bit like when this is a cricket reference now. Of course, I'm sure I have much about cricket, but there was this player called Chris Gale who played for the Sydney Thunder. It was a Western Sydney cricket team. Chris Gale, when he played for them, he stayed in a hotel in the city and didn't mix with them. He didn't want to live out and where it is. And so I thought of Buddy in the same way. This is not a criticism of Buddy. I just think he was better match for the Sydney Swans and Sydney Swans culture and all the stuff that he needed to have. He needed some people around him to, I think it's been a fantastic combination. So I'm very much on board with my wife. My wife didn't like the idea at all, but she's on board now. She's a big Buddy fan now, but at the time. So anyway, no. So which player would I take? I wouldn't take Dusty Martin because I can't stand him. As a person or as a player. In fact, I wouldn't take anyone from Richmond at all. Let's see. Tuke Miller. I love to have Tuke Miller on our side. Oh my goodness. Love Tuke Miller. Just that gutsy kind of just never say die. And I like watching him.
He's a heck of a player. I will completely agree with you on that one. I know Gold Coast sometimes was fun to watch sometimes because he's just an incredible player. To see him stay there and to have the loyalty to the club, I thought that was fascinating. But he was my favorite. He was the guy I wanted to watch when I watched the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah. He is really good. But I don't need another midfielder though. That's the thing. But so I probably this is actually
you could get a big tall for your forward line. Bring in a Hawkins.
Yeah, that's where I'd kind of would have to go is a tall for the forward line. So I mean, I would have loved Ben Brown, to be frank. I mean, when Ben Brown was leaving North, I thought I knew he was a great fit for Melbourne, and good luck, culturally and all that. He's a beautiful fit for Melbourne, and good luck to him. So he's actually one of my favourite players as a person and a player as well, Ben Brown. Look, it's any player. It's hard because some of the talls you say, I think Charlie Dixon's overrated. So people say Charlie Dixon. No, I don't want Charlie Dixon. I'll probably look Aaron Norton. He'd be good. Mm-hmm. I think, and it would annoy Bulldog supporters, which is a good thing. We have this weird kind of if rivalry. You're talking about rivalries. The Giants Bulldogs one is a much bigger one than the Giants Swans one in many ways.
It's surprising, but it works. But you get after each other, and I love that. Every game that you guys play each other is always a fun one. Yeah. I definitely Norton's a good one too. Mackay might even fit really well with your forward line just because of the size. The only thing is inconsistency in front of goal, so would be kind of a reason I would kind of say a little bit away from that. So we'll move on to the next one, and this will be fun. This will be fun for you as a Sydney birther, but now living in Melbourne. The last two seasons, the grand final has found itself outside of Victoria, outside of Melbourne, at the Gabba in Perth, and being somebody that I don't live in Australia, I don't have that connection to the history as much as some. I actually thought it was fascinating to see the Gabba and to see Perth, see Optus Stadium with the grand final. And it really made me think, like, I'm used to the Super Bowl over here in the States where it travels. It's never in the same place 2 years in a row. So I ask you this, are you somebody that's kind of, you loved the tradition, the MCG 230, or would you mind the grand final eventually? Again, I know it's the 50-year contract. Let's suspend reality for half a second. Could the grand final be something that would be really good as a traveling grand final?
See, this is the thing. So I never, because I'm not Victorian. So but being here, you learn a lot about the history and the culture and the ingrained nature of it, and the amount of anger and sort of sadness about not being at the MCG because it's theirs, because a lot of people still have that VFL point of view mindsets. Like because I still think it's a VFL, and so we just VFL with other states coming in and helping us make more money. It's kind of that's the attitude, the mindset, and you'll find that from a lot of Victorian club people. And also I get that because it's the MCG is a great ground. I know all that, and it's they've got all these traditions and the money comes in and all the corporate stuff. That's actually one of the reasons why I think it's not. I don't have a problem with it going in the state because most people who go to the grand final are not hardened football people; they're corporate people. So I don't have an issue as such. Like. With it going interstate, obviously, because also I'm from Sydney, so I think it's fine. I haven't got a problem with it. Whether it should be a travelling one, though, I think Adelaide should get it. It would have been nice if Adelaide would get one at some stage, because it's clearly would be a good ground. The SCG is possibly too small for a grand final. That's possibly one of the issues. Even that's got fairly good capacity these days, but I mean, I think it would be good to have it rotating like once a decade or every 5 years or something. It would be nice, but I'm not. Yeah, it was interesting though. I used to set up, Perth's a long way away. I'm not a big fan. Anyway, it's an interesting question, but I'm not. I'm pretty agnostic. Whatever happens, happens, and I'd be not a bad idea for it to have traveling. But it's a bit different from America, because in America you have all these big stadiums around the country, and but because of the different nature of the grounds here, it's kind of different feel, different reason, different things. So it's also not as national a game as is in America, because you've got most of your clubs in Victoria. So I think in that sense too, it's possibly not as a big thing. Like even in Sydney, it's still not a big game compared to, well, it's a fairly big game, I should say, but it's not as big as League. I was a fan of I think League should be Sydney, Brisbane. Because I think it was good to have it in Brisbane this year, because I think that should happen. It should happen more often, but and maybe it will for them, because I don't have the contract. But yeah. Interesting question.
It's a fun thing to think about. And the fact that I was hearing Victorian media people talking about it, which I thought was fascinating, because most of the time they hold on to their tradition and they fight like a rabid dog over it. So it was fascinating to see even some Victorian media going, we wouldn't mind it traveling. So it was very fascinating to hear that kind of the change a little bit. So as I've told a lot of people, I am a massive AFLW supporter. I think the game it's getting better and better each season. I did full reviews this year on this channel, and I enjoyed it. I thought the games were fantastic. And I'm super excited the fact that the league will be fully all 18 clubs, with my beloved Sydney Swans joining, not this year, but next season. So this year will be a little bittersweet not having that. But so I always ask my guests, are you an AFLW supporter? And if so, what were your thoughts on the Giants season last year?
So I was a foundation. I actually think I in some ways enjoyed the AFLW more. Maybe because the players are so nice people. Because you go to events and they're the ones who are really, really upfront, chatty, and talking. And because they're kind of maybe have jobs outside, they're less kind of standoffish. Some players can be a bit standoffish, I find. Male players, I should say. The women never as much. And also their best and fairest nights are the best ever. I've been to the men's ones and they're okay. But also stick to themselves. But the women, there's a very different feel. Very, very friendly. I think they're amazing people. I mean, there's and I think, and that's the thing. The other thing was that, I mean, anyone who ever met, and I'll mention this here, ever mentioned, I forgot, Cinder Barclay. It's actually been if you're talking about Giants culture and Giants fandom, it wasn't long since the 1 year anniversary of Cinder's passing. Now, Cinder, my memory of Cinder is that she, at the best and fairest nights, she remember there was a couple of things happened, because I've been to two best and fairest. One of them was that somehow the head of GG, the mascot, the old mascot, the first version of it, appeared at the best and fairest night, and people were dancing around with this GG head. And Cinder actually, she's the one who filmed me dancing around with this GG head. And then after that, she grabbed me and we danced on the floor for 3 minutes, and I was absolutely exhausted because Cinder was a firecracker like dancer. And then one of the employees said, "I'm exhausted." And then one of the employees said, "Now you know how Alan McConnell feels." But Cinder was a beautiful soul and clearly a troubled one. But when she passed away, all the Giants cheer squad people, all the supporters that we'd kind of got on Facebook, we're all devastated. We're all connecting with each other that night. I remember vividly, and we still she's still a big part of that the whole Giants sort of crew. And I think, it was just a tragedy. And I think that was kind of the thing that most of us remember from the season, even because it was like her spirit kind of was a massive part of that season. And like, I think we went okay. I think it's a season of transition in a sense, because the older players like Jess Delpos and so forth, they're talking about the whole heart and soul of the club. Jess Delpos is absolutely hot, and all good luck to her. She wants to go play in Victoria again because her family's here, and I met Jess's family actually at a function, and it was clear that she just wanted to come back, which is fair. Good. She worked so hard with that for the club. I think the thing about the Giants is that this is an issue that's going to continue. Is this whole thing about we've got to move on from having all these interstate people who are giving up so much to live in Sydney for that time and then play for not a lot of money. I mean, classic case is Jess Delpos, who was doing other work and she's even a coach in a girls' football team. I actually was her opponent coach at one stage, and so it was fun. But she, that's we need to have the Sydney players come through, which I mean, that's why I'm slightly concerned about the Swans. I mean, I think it's great we've got a Swans. I think we need a Swans team, but where's the pool? The women's comp in Sydney is weaker than anywhere else in Australia. And Queensland's got a much stronger women's league, got a women's comp, and there's various reasons for that. And I think we need, and that's why I have concerns going on. But last season, I think we did okay. We had some good shining lights. I think Beck Prevatelli, who I love, Beck, she's a great player, great person. She had a pretty good season. And we had various players come through. It was inconsistent, but it was a very, very inconsistent build up to the season too, because of the jumping around from place to place, and it was just So I think we did the best we could, and I think we did better than we thought we would, but. We'll see how it goes this season. I mean, I'm glad it's.
It'll be fast. It'll be a fascinating season. Hopefully, as long as we don't have any more COVID outbreaks and we keep things together, I think hopefully we'll be back to somewhat of a normal season this year. So towards the end, I like having a lot of fun with this one. Is that being Americans, we love eating at our sporting events. So I've always been fascinated by. What is your go-to food when you go to a footy match?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. Well, that is an interesting question too, because it depends on where I am. The go-to food at the Sydney Olympic Park, the showground. People in Victoria call it showgrounds. It's not. It's a showground. The showground stadium, or Giant Stadium as it is these days. The go-to food used to be the camel burger. It was famous, but then they stopped serving them. But I think the go-to food for me going there was probably the gourmet sausages, the Kransky things they had. That or the schnitzel burgers they used to sell. There's this food truck at Giant Stadium which sells various schnitzel burgers and stuff, but all with movie themes. It's kind of got movie themes, and all the meals have got movie themes, kind of movies as their name. I've forgotten them because I haven't been there for a couple of years. But that was often schnitzel burger or a gourmet sausage when I'm at Sydney, because the Giant Stadium has the most interesting food because there's not as many franchises. It's not like the MCG or other grounds where they got these sort of franchises or kind of anonymous things. And Sydney's all because it's connected to the Royal Easter Show. But Sydney, Royal Easter Show. But in Melbourne, probably. Oh, look, it's probably a pie. It is probably or a pasty. I went to South Australia. I'm in a pasty. But yeah, it's probably a pie or hot dog. I'm pretty much. It all depends on what I'm doing at the time, because hot dogs are easier to consume when you kind of got flags and other stuff to look after. But so I do like a bit of variety, obviously. But yeah, yeah.
As long as you enjoy the game, you have what you want. So definitely for sure. Because I haven't had a chance to see a game live, like professional, we do have a league over here, and I coach and I watch it. So, but I want to find out before I go, kind of what is the most ideal for you? What is the ideal place for you to sit to watch the footy?
Ooh, ooh, that's an excellent question too. I sit behind the goals because I'm with cheer spot, but it's not my ideal place. Um, oh, I would say it's probably um, Etihad Stadium. Now I know people. Oh, Etihad. Sorry, Marvel. Sorry,
Marvel. Yep.
Marvel Stadium. Yeah,
Marvel
people,
Docklands. It's had so many
yeah,
names we can't remember it.
people hate. People hate. A lot of people hate Marvel. I don't, because I love level 2, 50, like near the halfway, so that it's halfway up, near the centre, near sort of near the the middle. That's a really good seat. That's a really good place to watch it from, especially if you're in one of those really comfortable padded chairs. But the thing is that at the SCG, so you're a Swans guy, so at the SCG, I have sat in the members of the SCG, the Swans members all sit behind the goals or a little bit around in the I've got his name now, the cricketer, the stand name. Anyway, it's gone completely out of my head. O'Reilly, that's it, O'Reilly, Tiger O'Reilly, the cricketer. Mm-hmm. O'Reilly stand. That's not a bad seat, but I still think the best seat in the SCG is actually in the old members stand. So where the old members are, the cricket members, that's their stand. That is a superb place to watch footy in the top deck. It's an old stadium, it's traditional, obviously, but to watch footy from there is amazing. So
I've seen the pictures. It's a beautiful structure. I'm hoping to get a tour before I get to go to a game, because it just looks absolutely
and try to get to know a member, like a cricket member, and try to get you can get a pass and sit with them in that part. You honestly, you'll see it, because you're jutting out a bit, and you see it's below you. It's a sea of everything, and it just looks amazing. That's seriously. It's a great thing to do.
I will have to see what I can do. So as I've said in a few episodes, the channel that I would do this out of is primarily American sports, NFL, NBA, and MLB. But I like it because occasionally we'll get American fans that'll click on our footy videos and keep an eye on it. So I thought, for fun, towards the end, I would go, in case an American fan has clicked on this video and they've watched it and they got to this point, what would be your best pitch on why an American should support the GWS Giants?
Because we're young and gutsy, and we actually play hard, and we kind of our supporters are really, really friendly and small, and really just keen, just like people to get on board. We don't have internal fights that much. We actually don't really fight with each other at all. We're not overly critical of things. We don't get very snarly and snarky. We're just really, really just upbeat, happy to have our own club. We love we've got our own little boutique club. Think of it as a boutique club. If you're an American sports fan, if you are a man who likes your boutique beer, like your Sierra Nevada and that kind of gear, that kind of boutique beer, well, think of the GWS Giants as a boutique footy club with our own little boutique stadium in Sydney. With I'll tell you what, they're talking about great places to see football. Most of the Giants stadiums are great places to see football, because it's not too far away, and it's beautiful side. The sidelines they're great too, but that's what we are, and if you want to reach out to us and you want us to kind of, and we can give you all sorts of. We're very, very good at giving out information and connecting and making people feel friendly and wanted, because we are a small crew, but we're a growing crew, and that's probably our big pitch.
Awesome. That is fantastic. And my last question that I ask all of these. And just because I have a ton of fun with this one, because I think it's an incredible one to hear. What is your favorite game of footy that you've ever seen? It doesn't have to be a Giants game. It doesn't have to be live or TV, doesn't matter. What's your favorite game of footy that you've ever seen?
Mm, that's wow. That's a question. Um, Favorite ever game of football I've ever seen is oh, in terms of quality. Yeah, I know, because I want you to ask me. That is a massively staggering question. Look, it'd have to be the 2005 grand final. With oh no, forget that, 2012. 2012. That was a great game because Hawthorn is the enemy, and everyone thought Hawthorn was going to win, but the Swans came over, and now Malcheski's kick at the end was something spectacular. And yeah, that was I was in my year of transition then, because I was a Giants member, but I was also still last features of being a Swans supporter. Yeah, that was probably. But I mean, also, look, honestly, the 2019 prelim, that's also that was, in terms of emotional investment. Here we go. In terms of emotional investment, 2019 prelim. In terms of quality of game and the seesawing and the nature of different tactics, 2012 grand final. There's it. There's it too.
There's nothing wrong with that. I've had a few people that have done multiple, because sometimes it's not easy. And I have to say 2012 grand final was one of the kind of the last straws that tipped me over to be a Swan supporter, not just because they won, but their style of footy. So, and I know you said before we got started, you had this cool picture for the Swan
So,
supporters. So I got to see this.
so when the 2012 came done, the AFL. This is a special limited edition. They didn't make many poster that they made, because it was a famous picture of someone had done, because there's this big tradition in Australia of flying ducks on a wall. And so, but someone did this for the 2005, because there's some story about it, but then they made one for 2012. So yeah, that hangs on our wall, because I bought that as soon as the final siren went off. Because I thought, well, that's going to, we need to have that somewhere, because it's home life, and I'm still like them. But yeah, that was the I've still got that.
That is fantastic. Thank you for showing me that. The pictures were awesome. So, Mark, this has been just an awesome conversation. It's been great to hear your story. The fact that you're a foundation member of the GWS Giants, again, a club that is rather young but is growing, is becoming more popular. I think I can't wait to see how your club grows. This has been fantastic. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great pleasure. Great pleasure to talk. Thanks very much.
No problem. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode in my Aussie supporter series. Keeping an eye on. We're getting closer and closer to the end. We still have a few more to do. Keep an eye on. They'll be coming out very soon.